So if you look at the screen, you will see a graph that shows you exactly how rent has increased or decreased in different neighborhoods of Boston in the past year. Obviously, keep watching the video till the end because I'm going to tell you exactly the percentage and the dollar amount of what you can expect the rent to be in Boston in the year 2022. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to talk about exactly how rent is going to change in Boston in the year 2022. So I would say grab a notebook, grab some coffee. Let's talk about some rent in 2022. Let's talk about some financial things as we start this year to plan a better financial year. So if you are new to my channel, I just want to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Arpit. If you have been through my channel, you will see that there are so many Boston videos. The difference between other Boston videos that I have, even the one with the most views on my channel, is that this video is solely going to be focused on rent. I've made a lot of cost of living videos in the past. I have made videos that are talking about a lot of pros and cons about living in Boston, but this video we are solely focused on rent and how it's going to change in 2022. The reason I think this video is important is because I myself am going to move in the year 2022, so I've already started looking at what the rental market looks like in Boston, and rent is basically the major consideration of anybody who's a young adult moving to a new city or living in a city. But without further ado, let's talk about how rent is going to change in Boston in the year 2022. So really, when I look at how rent has changed in a city, I always love to look at different neighborhoods. So breakdown of how rent has evolved, increased or decreased in the different neighborhood. So any good financial forecast or rental forecast for sure usually begins with analyzing the data from the last year or the previous year. So let's have a quick look of how rent changed in Boston in the year 2021 or in the last year. So if you look at the screen, you will see a graph that shows you exactly how rent has increased or decreased in different neighborhoods of Boston in the past year. If you see here, on one side, you'll see that in neighborhoods such as Cambridge and Boston proper, the rent has increased by up to 15% in the past year. But there are also neighborhoods such as Brockton, Worcester, and Medford, for example, where rent has either gone down or barely increased. So you can see that overall in the main city area, the rent has gone up in the past year, but sort of in the outskirts or more or less the suburban areas, the rent has not increased that much. And if anything, has probably gone down because people have probably moved out because of the results of the pandemic. So if you're planning to move to Boston, or if you're planning to change neighborhoods in Boston in the year 2022, this graph should be your holy grail. It will tell you exactly which neighborhoods you expect the rent to go up furthermore in 2022, and in which neighborhoods you expect the rent to either stay the same or even decrease in 2022. Another really amazing thing we can calculate just from looking at this graph is how much the mean rent has gone up in Boston. So if I add up the percentage increase or decrease of all the neighborhoods starting from Cambridge, which is 15%, all the way to Brockton, which is a decrease of 15%. So if I add all these percentages, increase or decreases, and then I divide it by the total number of neighborhoods, which is 16 listed here, we get an overall percentage increase or an average percentage increase in Boston, which is about 7.35%, which is so amazing because just doing the simple math actually tells us that this data is absolutely correct, because a 7% increase in rent annually aligns with the national increase in rent overall in the US. So the percent increase in Boston is about the same level as the rest of the United States, which is about 7.3%, which tells me that this data is absolutely correct. But then also looking at different neighborhoods gives you an idea of which neighborhoods you can move in to save money versus which neighborhoods, if you move in, you'll be spending a lot of money. And this is clearly also reflected in the popularity and the population density in Boston. For example, in Boston and Cambridge, which are really popular, you'll see a 15% increase in rent is pretty normal. Even in Waltham and Farmington, Birmingham and Melrose, these are really up and coming areas, so rent is definitely going up in these areas, and that is absolutely correct as well. But there are some less popular areas to live in, and you'll see that it is reflected there that the rent hasn't gone up that much, or in fact has actually decreased. So now you might be asking, well, if I live in Boston, a 15% increase in rent is so much, like I'm not sure if I will be able to afford it. So first of all, from my experience living in Boston, let me tell you that a 15% increase in rent is absolutely normal in Boston. So for example, if you live in Boston and you pay $1,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment, it is totally normal in Boston for the rent to go up with about 15%, which would be $225 more. So you would be paying about $1,725 with that percent increase, or that 15% increase in rent. Overall, what the market is reflective of is an overall growth. So even if we take a step back in the year 2020, so let's forget about last year, let's forget about this graph. Even if we think about the year 2020, what had happened was in the housing market, people were offering a lot of discounts. A lot of places in Boston, for example, the landlords and these housing companies were offering up to 2, if not 3 months of free rent. So in 2020, the rental market had gone down in Boston, and the rent had decreased in Boston to about 15 or 16%. But if you look at this graph from the year 2021, since the economy has rebounded from the pandemic a little bit, you'll see that the Boston metro has caught up with that 16% discount. So we are back up to increases in rent in 15% in Boston, which basically normalizes the overall rent. So there was a dip in 2020, but the rental market has caught up and we are back to baseline, baby. And I found that rents are already increasing nationwide, and they're about to increase 7% also in the year 2022. So a few take homes right now are that in Boston, for example, cumulative rent will go up about 7% in the year 2022, but different neighborhoods increase or decrease at different rates, and Boston has been pretty consistent with an overall growth of about 10 to 15% every year. So expect the rent to go up about 15% this year. So for example, if you're living in Boston, again for easy math, if you're paying $1,500 for your studio or your 1-bedroom apartment in 2021, expect at least at the minimum a 7% increase in this year, which would lead your rent to increase by about $105. And if at max it goes up by 15%, it will go up by $225. Unless you live in some rent controlled building, I don't know if they exist. If they are there, please let me know where you live, and I will be happy to move in with you or in the building, please. There's also a lot of word on the street or conjecture about an upcoming inflation because we're rebounding from a pandemic. I don't actually even know if we're still rebounding or not. So a lot of things really remain uncertain because now we're entering the 4th and the biggest wave of the pandemic. But people say that the economy has rebounded because we are better equipped to deal with the pandemic because we have the vaccines, we have tests, we have masks, all of that stuff. So people are saying, scientists are saying, and financial advisors are saying that there is not going to be another lockdown or a full-blown quarantine, and the economy is gonna continue to boom. But then on the flip side, there are also conjectures about inflation and overall increase in the price of commodity and property and the goods that we utilize to survive in the day-to-day world. So how the pandemic is going to play out, and if or if not there is going to be an inflation and an even more increase in the prices of property and goods, it still remains to be seen. If we have learned anything from the past 2 years with all the new variants coming out and the pandemic basically not relenting, is that a lot of these financial effects still remain to be decided. Okay guys, so there was a lot of numbers in this video, there was a lot of data in this video, but I'm so happy to make this video. I actually love talking about data, about neighborhoods, percentage increases, decreases. It's so amazing to me. Like I said, I'm a scientist by profession. For me, data means everything. Seeing numbers, seeing actually quantitative data, and then analyzing it a few different ways and from a few different sources really gives me an idea of how things are shaping up in the year 2022. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did like this video, please like the video. Please share the video. If you know somebody who is moving to Boston and would want to watch this video, please subscribe to the channel. Please comment. See you next week for another video. Bye.